Again, my name's Jason Hamilton. I manage the financial planning group with Stockyards Bank, and I'm a wealth advisor. Again, we're thankful that you've reached out and joined us today. I know there's been a couple of weeks since we got together. I'd like to have said that things have gotten better, and although the stock market seems to be looking past everything, unfortunately, socially, we just can't find a new norm. And we hope that that continues to get better. But from those of us at Stockyards Bank, certainly hope that you're healthy and safe wherever you might be today joining us. Wanted to catch you back up. We'll have questions again, as we usually do at the end. If you're online, you can chat a question, or if you're on the phone, you can *6 and unmute yourself to ask a question at the end. I would ask while you're, before we get started, that you would make sure you are muted. So we don't have any background distractions. And we'll get started we'll go through two things as normal. I'm going to start with an economic update from David Brooks, who's an investment officer, and he's here in Cincinnati with me, actually. David's a Louisville native, but moved up to Cincinnati quite some time ago, and obviously joins us at Stockyards Bank. And then my colleague, Kimberly Cunningham, and I will go through Social Security on the second half of that and give you a kind of high level drill into some parts of Social Security for those that are interested in understanding the dynamic and confusing world of how do you claim and what's the best way to claim. So we'll go through that. So with that said, I'm going to let David kick it off. So it's all yours, David.
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Brooks. I am an investment officer, as Jason said, here in Cincinnati. So hopefully I can provide some insight into what the financial markets are telling us right now in this period of such uncertainty. As Jason mentioned, it's not on the agenda, but I thought I should take a moment to speak to the social unrest that is taking place. It's so unfortunate, horrible to see. And I've had a few people ask me about the stock market, and I think the thing to remember is that it's not a social barometer for the nation. It obviously is driven more by greed and fear and so on. And from a standpoint of looking back at history, if you look at the 1960s, it gives you an indication that was obviously a horrible decade. Martin Luther King was assassinated. There were the 1968 Chicago riots. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Vietnam was taking place. Obviously, it was a very difficult decade. But the stock market during the 1960s, aside from a few drops here and there, actually performed quite well. And 1968 was a very tough year socially, and the stock market was positive that year. So it's just important to remember as you're looking at the headlines and then looking over at the stock market that they're not correlated. But it nevertheless is so unfortunate to see all that's taking place. Now, with that being said, why is the stock market going up? Because it obviously is tied to the economy. And we here at Stockyards Bank feel there are two reasons primarily that the market is rising. First is, and probably the most influential, is the Federal Reserve's injection of liquidity. As many of you probably remember and was spoken on this WebEx by other investment advisors, when the pandemic unfolded, the Federal Reserve stepped in quickly, introduced several programs to have money flowing into the system, whether it was the corporate market, the bond market, other markets. They basically said, we're going to inject tremendous liquidity into the system to help the economy stabilize. They injected about $5 trillion, and there are some whispers that think eventually they may inject $10 trillion into the economy. Time will tell. If you recently saw Jerome Powell on 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago, he spoke to that, and when you look him in the eye, you can tell he's serious. He is going to bring the full force of the Federal Reserve to bear upon this market. And liquidity is a powerful injection. If you can get that with a little bit of velocity, it can take you a long way. Because basically when the Fed injects liquidity, they are increasing the money supply. And if you've ever studied economics, if you correlate the money supply to the stock market, they do move in tandem. As money supply increases, as long as you have a little bit of velocity, stocks will rise. And the Fed and what they've done so far dwarfs what they did in 2008. We are talking percentages of our annual GDP they're injecting into the system over weeks. And it's a very powerful force, and I think that's one of the key drivers right now. The second thing that we think may be taking place here is there is evidence that the stock market is a leading economic indicator. If you go back in time, back 20 years ago to 2000, we had the dot-com bubble when the NASDAQ sold off quite a bit. We also had the year after, in 2001, the horrific events of September 11th. That was a very, very difficult time for our country. And if you can imagine, just like today, people back then were very, very fearful of the future. The market ended up bottoming in October of 2002, but unemployment did not peak until June of 2003. That is 8 months after the market bottomed. So if you can imagine, back then, people were worried, the stock market was rising, there was great fear out there, and yet markets kept rising. Everybody's like, why is the stock market rising when unemployment keeps getting worse? Fast forward to 2008, many of you probably remember the housing bubble. The market popped, went down a great deal. There was a great deal of fear in that market. Banks were under tremendous duress. Lehman Brothers failed, Bear Stearns failed, and the market ended up bottoming in March of 2009, but unemployment did not peak until October of 2009. That was 7 months after. So once again, if you can imagine, the stock market started rising in the winter of 2009, 2010. Meanwhile, unemployment got worse month after month. People saw their neighbors losing jobs, and everybody kept saying, why is the stock market going up? We get into the springtime. Sure enough, unemployment's getting worse in 2009, yet the market kept going until it peaked, as I said, in October. The point here is that many times the stock market will turn before the fundamentals, and that is a very important lesson to be learned. The stock market is an aggregation of all that is known in the marketplace. Sometimes individuals feel they know better than the market what's going to happen. But remember, the market is an aggregation of all investors throughout the world, and they have information and access to information. Sometimes the general public does not know what is taking place. So you have to always understand that, as is the case now, the market bottomed at least so far in March of this year. We're now into June. Stocks have risen a great deal, even though unemployment has gotten worse. Now, there are some signs that maybe the market had some things right. So if you look at weekly unemployment claims, when the pandemic first hit, we were up to about 6 million that filed that first week. And fortunately, that has slowly come down, but not fast enough. I believe last week we were around 2 million. This week it'll be interesting to see where we come in, hopefully much lower. But there are some signs of green shoots starting to develop here in Cincinnati. Jason and I and others here in the market talk to our customers. Some of them are business owners. And there are signs that they're starting to hire back some of the people that lost their job. Some companies actually are flourishing. So we're cautiously optimistic that the stock market, through the actions of the Federal Reserve, is starting to sniff out better times ahead. But needless to say, headlines are very difficult to read nowadays. So as you look forward, the other thing that we're considering is that we're seeing a lot of movement in the market when you get wind of a possible vaccine or treatments. There's been cases where we've woken up on a Monday and the market gaps up on some company that may have a vaccine or some treatment. So you can obviously tell, too, that the market's going to try to discount that before it becomes widely recognized. If there are signs of a treatment or a vaccine, we're probably going to see it in the market's pricing before it actually gets to the knowledge of the general public. So again, that is something else that the market's trying to discount. So again, the main takeaway here is that the market is a leading economic indicator and tends to turn before the fundamentals. Now, with that backdrop, it is important to remember that the economy is changing before our very eyes. There is no doubt that the pandemic is causing all of us to rethink what are we going to spend our money on, especially those who are at heightened risk for the pandemic, meaning the virus. They might be being a little more cautious. So all companies are starting to change how they do what they do. We have some companies that are performing better than others. And this speaks to another point I wanted to raise, is that probably more so now than ever before, you have to be oriented around an active money management approach. It's critical to not be passively investing right now. What I mean by that is, with the economy changing so much, if you're going to invest in the stock market, you need to know what you're buying. If you had simply put your entire portfolio in one ETF or one mutual fund which tracked the market, you would have owned companies such as airlines, hotels, casinos, gaming industries, leisure, travel, and those stocks, of course, have been annihilated, and rightly so. Now, they have shown some sign in coming back recently, which is comforting, but there's no doubt that those industries are going to be changing for some time to come. Meanwhile, you have other companies, many of the companies that we here at Stockyards Bank and our investment team have been purchasing, which have been performing very well. Companies such as Microsoft, which reported good earnings in the last month. That company, as many of you know, offers Microsoft Meeting. It's a software package that not only are companies, institutions, but school districts are starting to consider doing as we have more remote access, become more transparent and part of our everyday life. Microsoft also has about 10% of its revenue tied to an industry that a lot of teenagers and other people are doing, which is gaming, the Xbox system. And that is something that a lot of people have been doing since they've been stuck at home for so long. On the same time, you've got companies like American Tower. American Tower produces the cell towers that you see all over the country, and that industry is booming. We're going to move to 5G. That's only going to be needed more. And so, given that so many people are working remotely, that's another good company that's had good earnings. And the healthcare space, Bristol Myers, another company that Stockyards has purchased for its clients, they had a good quarter. So right now, I think what I'm trying to say is you need to understand what you're owning. You don't want to just buy a bunch of ETFs and sit back and let it go. You need to understand how you're structured for the benefit of yourself and your family. We at Stockyards Bank, our investment team, work closely with our financial planning team as well as our trust and estate administrators to basically construct a system that understands what your goals are and then construct a portfolio to achieve those. Because ultimately what you want to focus on is achieving your goals, and that's what the key piece to all this and how we build things. I spoke about the stocks we've been buying, and our core portfolio, which is really the focus of how we manage some of our accounts, is built on the idea of buying companies that have good balance sheets, strong management teams, built especially for how the world is changing right now. We have exceeded the S&P over the last year, over the last 3 years, over the last 5 years, and since inception. So active management works. It's what Stockyards brings to the table. And those of you who have worked with us know that, and we appreciate all your support. So aside from questions later, Jason, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, great. Thanks, David. I appreciate the high-level update on what's happening out there. And I think, you know, most of us do fine, especially average investors. They're surprised to hear that the stock market really is a leading indicator. It is that far ahead of what you and I or typical investors kind of, you know, gain on a daily basis out there. With that said, kind of want to jump into Social Security here with Kimberly Cunningham. So Kimberly is a financial planner and wealth advisor down in the Louisville office. Been down there for a number of years now. And, you know, when she and I or any of the other planners, you know, we're meeting with clients and we're having conversations around their financial plan, you know, one of the hot buttons, one of the more popular questions is around Social Security. And I wish, you know, at times I feel like it's not confusing, but, you know, in all reality, at the end of the day, Social Security, it's a government-provided pension essentially. And, you know, when it has government behind it, it's going to come with some confusing rules that play in that space, unfortunately. So we're here to help decipher that with you, kind of go through some of the more popular questions that we hear when we're meeting with clients and prospects, and take you through that, allow for any questions at the end. Again, hopefully we'll have covered at least everything about Social Security, at least at a high level today, but there might be some things that we've forgotten, and you can certainly ask those questions at the end, or if you want to email in questions, that email address will be also at the very end. But with that, Kimberly, I want to welcome you, and I'll kind of jump right in and put you on the spotlight. Probably the most popular question is how do I enroll in Social Security, and how much am I going to get, and how's that figured out? So you have any answers for that? I know Kimberly was having some technical trouble earlier, but
can you hear me now?
I can hear you. There you are. I thought you were going to leave me out on my own to do all this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be back as one of the SYB WebEx personalities today. And actually, as I was working on my presentation yesterday, I realized that I love Social Security planning. I'm sure most of you don't necessarily share that same feeling with me yet, but I love it because, as Jason was saying, it's so complex and there are so many variables to consider when it comes to Social Security. And everyone's claiming strategy is different. There is no kind of one-size-fits-all. So I really enjoy analyzing my clients' options and creating the best strategy for them. So with our presentation today, we hope that you'll have some concepts and buzzwords to keep in mind when you're planning for retirement and Social Security. So as Jason asked, how do I enroll in Social Security and how much will I receive? Way back when, Social Security used to mail out statements to individuals after attaining a certain age. I've heard from my clients that they no longer necessarily receive anything in the mail, so we advise that you visit ssa.gov, and if you've never logged in before, you can create your own account, and it will provide you with your estimated benefits statement, which will be updated annually and takes into account your wage earnings history to calculate what your benefit will be. And as you see the statement here, the picture, it will provide the different ages and benefit amounts that you can expect to receive in the future. So I encourage everyone who is nearing age 62, if Jason, you want to go to the next slide, we'll take a look at, so Social Security is based on your year of birth. And as you can see with, you've probably heard in the news and some articles that the Social Security Trust Fund may be running out of funds. So one way for them to kind of slow down that is by creating different full retirement ages for individuals. FRA is an acronym that we'll use throughout the presentation, and it stands for full retirement age. And if you see your year of birth, you can then follow the line to the right and you'll see what your full retirement age is. And that age is when you will receive 100% of your PIA or primary insurance amount, which is basically what you've paid into Social Security. You'll receive 100% of your benefit that is due to you. So again, if you're kind of nearing full retirement age, or if you're age 62, which is the earliest you can claim benefits, I suggest before that time to log into Social Security and get an idea of what your benefit might be. So, and why is that so important? Generally, we tell clients as we're retirement planning for them that you'll need about 70% of your pre-retirement earnings to comfortably maintain your pre-retirement standard of living. So Social Security benefits are intended to supplement your retirement income. They're not intended to completely replace your paycheck, which is another reason why saving for retirement is so important. but they will replace about 40% of your income. So that's a significant amount of income that you can count on in retirement to continue that standard of living that you're accustomed to. And the percentage is that 40% is lower for individuals in the upper income tax brackets, and it makes up a higher percentage for individuals with lower incomes. The reason being, Jason, if we want to go next slide. Reason being is Social Security sets limits on how much of your income it will take into consideration when calculating your benefit. So the cap for 2020 is $137,700. That does increase with inflation. So that is the top amount that will be reported and taken into consideration when Social Security computes your benefit. And for example, the benefits calculation, the average benefit that was expected to be received this year is about $1,500 per month. So that's just average, regardless of, or with considering all the ages that people are claiming. The max, and there is a maximum monthly benefit that can be paid out, again, tying into that income cap. And the maximum benefit an individual can receive at full retirement age, again, that age where you receive 100% of the benefit that you've paid into, is $3,000 per month in 2020. That's the full retirement age benefit. If you delayed Social Security until age 70, the latest age possible to claim benefits, that amount increases to just shy of about $3,900 per month, which is pretty significant for all those years in retirement. Benefits are subject to a cost of living adjustment. Some years it's 0, some years it's 1%. For 2020, it was actually 1.6, and I think last year it had a decent COLA. It just depends on, where inflation is and what the Social Security Administration deems appropriate. So back to claiming early versus delaying, and what different age ranges you can claim benefits. We won't go through this entire chart today, but if you, after this presentation, are just curious, you can look at the year that you were born, and then when you claim benefits at that age, what percentage of you would receive from Social Security. So if you want to look at this after, you can have fun with finding out how much of your benefit you are receiving or may expect to receive when you plan on claiming Social Security.
Awesome. Now, that was a great wealth or bit of knowledge there, and you covered a lot of information, and it's all the same stuff that we do cover with clients. Now, as you can imagine, a common thing that we do hear from clients when we're meeting with them is hey, they feel entitled that they've been putting money into the Social Security system for years, and when the age 62 comes around, they're debating, do I start taking money right away, or do I wait, and what are the advantages, what's the disadvantage? And naturally so, unfortunately, one of the questions that we do get, or through these questions that we do get, there's not really a right or wrong answer. We can't tell you the exact right answer until we know when your life expectancy is. So if I knew what year you're going to pass, we can figure out the best solution for claiming Social Security. But without knowing that, all we can do is plan the best given your situation. And as Kimberly had mentioned, you mentioned earlier that everyone has a different situation out there. So, how do you address the common question of, what's the impact of taking Social Security at an early age versus that later age? Why would I wait?
Right. So, a lot of clients sometimes will come and say, well, I was speaking to my friend and they heard this, or this friend of mine or neighbor heard this. So just keep in mind that every strategy is unique to each individual's circumstances. So claiming early, the earliest an individual can claim a benefit is age 62. And between age 62 and your full retirement age, somewhere between age 66 to 67, you receive a reduced benefit. So that's less than 100% of your primary insurance amount. You can also delay claiming Social Security. So that is if your full retirement age, again, somewhere between age 66 and 67, through age 70, your benefit will increase. So you'll receive more than 100% of your benefit. And that increase is significant. I think I have it in a few slides, but it's as much as about between 7 and 8%, depending when your full retirement age is. That's how much of an annual increase you can earn on your benefit by delaying till age 70. And we'll get into some strategies as to why or why not someone may delay or claim early. One important note is that taking benefits early while still working may have penalties. And when I mean early, I mean at any age prior to turning your full retirement age. So Social Security has an earnings income limit. And you can see on this chart that if you're under full retirement age, you can earn up to $18,240 before the clawback provision takes place. Anything above that amount, as you can see, for every $2 you earn above that limit, $1 is withheld from benefits. In the year that you turn full retirement age, that income limitation increases, and after attaining full retirement age, there is no income limit. So when working with clients, if they have a strong feeling to take Social Security early, it's always a great idea to ensure that their income, and by income I mean W-2 wages, is below the certain thresholds so that they're not claiming that benefit and taking a reduced benefit, but then not getting to receive the full benefit due to these income limitations. In full retirement age year, there's a larger income threshold, and I learned through helping clients that if you work for half the year and your income is below $48,600, then you can still claim benefits. So bottom line, lots to consider, but just talk with your advisor and kind of think through some strategies. So for an example, I'm a visual learner. I love looking at visuals. So we have Gary here, and his Social Security benefits at age 62, 66, and 70, which are provided on the estimated benefit statement that you can pull from ssa.gov. At age 62, so again, it's a reduced benefit, he could claim $1,200 a month. If he delays till his full retirement age of age 66, that amount increases to a $1,600 a month benefit. And if he delays till age 70, he gets about 130% of his retirement benefit of $2,112. So what does that mean in the projections for planning? So lifetime benefits, you'll hear us refer to that frequently, is when the age you claim benefits, and then whatever your projected longevity is and how much you should collect from Social Security over that time period. This doesn't account for inflation or any COLA adjustments, but at age 62, and Gary's longevity in these examples is age 89, which with planning, we like to be a little on the conservative side, so we typically start at the youngest of age 90 for longevity. So here are the different amounts that over Gary's lifetime of collecting benefits, the total amounts he can expect to receive if he were to claim at these different ages. So there's a huge difference between age 62 and 70, and that difference is actually a 24% increase if Gary delays till age 70 versus claiming early at age 62. The math between if Gary were to claim at age 66 and 70 is 9% increase. And again, if his longevity is extended past age 89, then those amounts increase and get larger. So the next question that we receive a lot is, well, what's the break-even age? So this is kind of a ballpark estimate, but the break-even age between claiming at age 62 versus full retirement age is 66 is about 78 years old. So if you're expecting to live past age 78, your cumulative total lifetime benefits, you'll receive more by delaying till full retirement age. The break-even age between full retirement age and age 70, the latest you can claim or would want to claim benefits because your benefits don't increase past age 70, that break-even age increases to about 83. So again, if you anticipate living longer past age 83, it may be in your best interest to delay benefits so that you're collecting those at a higher amount. And then the break-even age between 62, the earliest, and age 70, the latest, it's about 80, 81 is that break-even age. Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, like you said, visually, it really helps to see the difference of age 62 versus age 66 versus age 70. That's a pretty powerful number. And, you know, for those that are younger today, maybe they're in their 50s, starting to think about retirement, they're probably higher income earners than what this example is of Gary. So when you start to plug in really affluent, high income earners and look at those benefits, it becomes even more dramatic, the lifetime benefits that you see. You know, when we crunch numbers from clients, you know, oftentimes we're talking about numbers over a lifetime that are going to be maybe twice as much as the numbers we're looking at here for more affluent clients. So it is always very eye-opening. And, you know, the other surprising reaction we get when we're going through this, as you addressed, is people are surprised to hear that there's penalties. You know, they're taking Social Security and they're getting penalized because they have a job, because they have waged income. So that is, you know, obviously a factor. You know, many people want to retire. And when they say retire to us anymore these days, it just means leaving that 8 to 5 everyday job that they've been doing for however many years. And some of them still want to work, you know, part-time, and now they have to juggle and really consider, if when I take Social Security, how I'm going to juggle that earned income from, you know, that fun job that I have out there. And in a lot of cases, it's not going to impact Social Security, but for some, you know, we have obviously executives that leave and they go on to do consulting, and consulting can easily bust through those income limits for Social Security. So it's, you know, yeah, it's very powerful. It's good to see this. When we do financial planning, we do these for clients one-off, especially when they get right to that early 60s when they're trying to plan Social Security. We can show a very similar plot to show lifetime benefits to help make decisions easier. And as you know, Kimberly, we can show these charts all we want, and at the end of the day, it's the client's preference. And sometimes the amount of money that they might make by waiting, they're just not sold on that, and they're going to take it, you know, earlier because they can take it. And like I said, there's no right or wrong, and you know, right. Everyone. Go ahead.
So saying these are all some variables to consider, but like we said earlier, there's a multitude of variables, and not all of them are going to lead you to the same answer. Longevity is one of them, and you know, still working is one of them, and your feelings. People have a lot of feelings towards Social Security and emotion, and then there's also the number game of how much are you going to receive and what are your total lifetime benefits. And sometimes the lifetime benefits don't outweigh the peace of mind or whatever your individual circumstances are. So just lots of variables to consider.
Yeah, no, there really is. It's just like in our investment officers, they're weighing all the variables for placing and why they buy something, how they build an asset allocation, and planning for Social Security is very similar. So that leads us kind of into, you know, you've covered a lot of things, and another common question is you know, maybe it's someone that's lost a spouse or they're divorced, you know, they want to know, hey, am I stuck with just my benefit, or, hey, you know, my spouse or my ex-partner, you know, they had a much higher benefit amount, you know, are they entitled to that at all, or are they only stuck with theirs? So, you know, what's the answer to that for them?
So I do think Social Security is very fair to everyone in the fact that whichever spouse you are, the income earner or not, you're not left high and dry. There's still benefits for you. So just in general, married couple, as a spouse, you can claim, or just as an individual, you can claim benefits based on your own earnings, or you can collect a spousal benefit. Whichever benefit is higher is the one that you will ultimately end up collecting. But if, say, you were not the high income earner of the family, you are still entitled to 50% of the primary spouse's earners full retirement age benefit. I think I said that kind of backwards. So, and the benefit you would claim is whichever amount's higher, whether it's your individual benefit or 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. Again, some complexities with that. With the new guidelines that the administration put into place several years ago, to claim spousal benefits, the wage earning spouse, or the one with their significant individual benefit, must have already filed for benefits for you to collect spousal. And that's usually pretty simple if both spouses are the same age. It gets a little dicey when there's larger age differences between spouses. And to be eligible to be a spouse claiming spousal benefits, you have to have been married for at least a year, and you must be at least age 62, because again, Social Security doesn't start for individuals until age 62. And the amount that you would receive if you are claiming a spousal benefit does not increase after the spouse's full retirement age. So if I'm the higher earner in my family and my spouse does not have a benefit, if I choose to delay my Social Security till age 70 to receive 132% of my benefit, my spouse will only receive up to 50% of my 100% full retirement age benefit. And this includes spouses, you know, without an individual benefit. So that's kind of how spousal benefits work. Again, it's particular to each person's situation. And then for survivor benefits, so in this instance, in the event that your spouse were to predecease you, you still get to collect Social Security benefits even if you don't have a record of your own. Just to point out, there is a one-time lump sum death benefit of $255. Don't spend it all in one place. And you have to be married for at least 9 months to be eligible to claim benefits on your deceased spouse. Also, you cannot be currently married or have remarried before age 60. So again, to take from your deceased spouse's benefit, you have to be, you have to wait till age 60 to remarry if that was something important. And as a widow or widower, benefits can begin as early as age 60. So here's a loophole, because I just told you you have to be 62 for an individual, but if you are a widow or widower, your benefits as that can start at age 60. And then it gets a little complicated depending on the age of when your spouse were to have predeceased you, and whether or not they were claiming benefits. So there's a flow chart here and a few slides that may help that make a little more sense. So in the event of a divorce, still considered survivor benefits, you are entitled to receive a benefit on your ex-spouse's record if you were married for at least 10 years and again are currently unmarried up until at age 60. Again, in the event of divorce, you can claim benefits if you are 62 or older. And then some complicated rules. Sometimes your ex-spouse must have to have filed for benefits if the divorce is within 2 years. After 2 years, then that requirement is eliminated. And just like the spousal benefits, you can collect up to 50% of your ex-spouse's full retirement age benefit if they're still living. And if your ex-spouse has predeceased you, then there's potential that you could claim their full individual benefit as your own. And claiming ex-spouse benefits does not impact your ex-spouse, or if they got remarried, it does not impact their new spouse's eligibility to claim benefits on that person's Social Security record. And there's something called a family maximum that does not apply either. So, some clients don't necessarily, as a strategy, sometimes if they are a widow or widower, they could claim benefits at age 60, so 2 years prior to when individuals can claim, and they could claim that spouse or that survivor benefit from age 60 till age 70 and then turn their own benefit on at age 70. So they're allowing their benefit to earn that 132% increase till age 70 while still claiming Social Security benefits. So that's some planning strategies for those out there who might, this situation might apply to you. Here is a chart on survivor benefit reduction or increase percentage. Again, Social Security amounts are tied to the age in which you file. So the earlier you file, you get a reduction in benefits, which could also then hinder your individual benefit later on. So if you were to claim survivor benefits at age 60, you would receive about 72% of that 100% amount. And then obviously nothing increases past age 70. And that 50 to 59 age group is for disability and other certain special circumstances. Here is another visual. If you are a survivor, if you take, like I said, at age 60, you'll receive 70% of the benefits. And then here are some documents that is a good idea to bring with you to the administrative office to provide them with some documentation for them to give you those spousal numbers. So here's that widower benefits flow chart that I was referencing. It gets a little complicated depending on if the deceased spouse was claiming benefits and what age they were when they started claiming. So if you are someone that is interested, please talk to one of us, but here's a flow chart to kind of help guide you into maybe what situation would be applicable to you.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you covered that very well. And, you mentioned, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years ago now that they passed new legislation that changed the rules. And these are the more simplified rules, which, even listening to you today spins my head because of all the caveats that are in play, given whatever your circumstance might be. There might be someone on the call that, was born before or in 1953 or earlier and hasn't claimed. There are old rules out there that still could come into play. Restricted application, maybe it's something you've heard about. We didn't really cover that today because most of those out there, there's very few that fall into that class that can still claim. And all that's saying is that, a higher income earner might decide to take and claim, assuming they're both at full retirement age, born 53 or earlier. Let's say Kimberly was the higher income earner and, her spouse is the lower. She might decide, hey, I'm going to file a restricted application and take my spouse's benefit, so take half of that benefit while mine has the time to grow and capture that extra 32%. So you'd essentially get 132% of your full retirement age benefit. And then at age 70, it allows you to switch over and collect that benefit of your record. So again, we didn't really touch on that because it is kind of diminishing. I know, Kimberly, you want to jump in with something there?
I was going to say, there are some clients that we've came across that can still file a restricted application, and being the nerd, I get so excited that they can take advantage of that strategy that is no longer, which again, I think they took away that strategy and the suspended filing strategies to kind of cushion that trust fund because, you know, the baby boomer generation had way more workers paying into Social Security than where we currently are at, but we're having to pay out then now to the baby boomers. So they're, you know, refining some of their strategies to try and keep some of the funds intact longer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jason.
No, you're fine. So good point. You know, let's just say you're listening, or you know someone that fits that, you know, born in 1953 or earlier, they're not taking benefits yet. You know, I would recommend that they talk to an advisor, talk to us, call the Social Security office. The only thing I would say is you can't always trust 100% of what the Social Security office says, so even they're confused by their own rules. So double check, fact check things with an advisor. But a lot of things that Kimberly had kind of gone through, you know, we as financial planners, when we're sitting down with a client and going through things, you know, there's so many variables that come into play. Again, Kimberly said it a number of times, no one individual, no couple necessarily has the same claiming strategy. There's a lot of things determining why they're going to claim the way they are. And it's a lot of it is based on cash flow needs and timing, and they're trying to time maybe taking distributions from an IRA or, you know, exactly when they're going to call it quits and retire. Longevity is a big piece of that. So that is a common question we will ask our clients is, you know, what's the family history look like? If you've lost both of your parents at a very early age, we might tell you, you know what, maybe it does make sense to take the risk and gamble and claim at an earlier age with the fear of, you know, you might not live past that break-even point. Again, my argument, though, is medicine's changing every day, and people really are living longer. But it's a gamble, but longevity is a big part of that. And then, you know, sources of income, you know, maybe there's a pension, you know, maybe you've got a little side job that's paying money. Maybe you're expecting future inheritance. It could be anything that also comes into play for making that decision. And then, you know, one of the biggest pieces, and Kimberly touched on it also, is emotion. As I've had said earlier too, you know, we can put together a great illustration of what your lifetime benefit's going to look like at any given age. But at the end of the day, a lot of clients are driven by emotion, and they're going to take the benefit regardless of what we tell them, just because they know it's there for them to take it. They feel like the Social Security pension fund won't be there for their lifetime, so they're going to get it while they can. And, you know, that is a common brought up question. You know, I think 2032, 2035, you know, Social Security is technically underfunded then. And while I would say I don't think Social Security goes away, I think we see rule changes that maybe you don't get 100% of your full retirement age benefit. You might get a reduced benefit amount, or they might move those full retirement ages up to even higher age classes. So I suspect something like that changes. I don't know that Social Security goes away, but if you are—
keep in mind that Social Security started at age 65, and now we're at age 67 for people born, 1960 or later. So
right.
We foresee future changes.
Yeah, so people have started working longer. You know, like you just said, 65 was the traditional retirement age. When Social Security came out, that was the thought of, you know, you're hanging it up and now you collect your benefit. But people are working longer, they're living longer, so they have been bumping that age up. Other things that come into play, again, we see this all the time with planning. and it's age differences between spouses that can really make a decision or an impact to how you're going to claim. So we evaluate that. And then obviously.
Just to cut in on that part, if you don't have an individual benefit, so you're claiming a spousal benefit from your spouse's record, and there is a big age difference between you two, or maybe there's not, but one of you has some health concerns, if your spouse who has that higher benefit predeceases you, you get their benefit at their death. So again, trying to decipher if what's in the best interest for the whole family, and financial planning can help project that out. You may decide, well, it might be in our best interest for me to claim at 70 because you're 5 or 10 years younger than me, and if I predecease, which is just human nature, you're older, you typically might pass away sooner. You're then at least leaving your spouse with your higher benefit amount, depending on when you claim.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, no, great point. And then obviously some of these choices are made easier just by how well you saved during your working career. So if you've created significant assets out there that let you live off of them from your early 60s up to age 70, that makes the decision a lot easier. If you're borderline, then that's where we start to plan around, well, what's the impact of a drawdown on the given the assets that you have set aside? If you do wait to 70, can your liquid assets weather that drawdown until that you hit that age 70 where you get the higher benefit amount, and then you scale back your drawdown? So those are all things that we're going through. I know we covered, Kimberly covered a ton of information. It's probably going to leave you with questions. And rightfully so, because as I will say for the 15th time, it's not a simple process to navigate through, and it takes a lot of planning and visually seeing things to really make sure you've gotten it right. If you should happen to think about a question beyond today, again, WMT questions at syb.com. Feel free to send those in. We'll address any questions that come through that email. If you have even a suggestion on a topic that you would like us to cover, you can also email us that way. Right now, we have the next Bright Ideas WebEx scheduled for probably Tuesday, June 16th. That's likely. Sometimes they call audibles, and it might get bumped a week. It just depends what's happening, but that's the target. Tuesday, June 16th. Look for an invite to come out probably early next week. We'll send it out. It'll have today's video and presentation attached to it. So if you want to listen to it again, be able to or reference back to what we've covered today to help with your own decision making, that's there for you. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask. So you can unmute your phone, *6, or you can chat to us a question, and I'll give it a minute for anyone that has a question out there to chat us.
I challenge you to stump Jason. Right now's your turn, your chance.
That would be pretty easy.
If that's possible.
That would be easy. So yeah, any questions? If anyone has a question about the markets, what David spoke about, maybe something he didn't reference and you wanted to ask, feel free to do so now. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions coming through. So as I said, the next invite will have this attached, the presentation and the recording. And again, feel free to share it with other family members, maybe people in your network that you think could benefit from this. And as I've said in the past, when you get these invites, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's another family member, maybe it's a work colleague. If you feel like they would benefit from a topic that you see in the invite, feel free to send the WebEx meeting out there. You can forward it to whoever you want. We're happy to host and have as many that want to join us. And again, as some comments I made earlier today at the start of the meeting, it's a crazy world out there. Hope you're able to enjoy the start of summer here with family. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you sometime soon. Take care, everybody.